The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Today is Tuesday. It is February 22nd, 2022, 2/22/22. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. We are going to begin this morning with a shot out of Washington, D.C., provided to us by our partners at ACT TV. We will be joined momentarily just there outside of the White House. There's major news happening all across the world. Not only the happenings in Ukraine and Russia, we'll be joined by the team from ACT TV to discuss that briefly, as well as the mission, the campaign that is moving forward with Senator Elizabeth Warren. We're going to be picking that conversation up momentarily. We'll also be joined by the regular crew this morning. Dr. Carl Mack will be joining us with a Black history, as well as Georgia Fort. There's updates. This has been one of the most eventful weekends in, I would argue, American history, world history. There's a lot happening all around the world. We can't take our eye off of any of it. And if you get whiplash because of how quickly we're switching in between these stories, all I could ask is that you hold on, because every single one of these stories is important. I want to begin briefly with this first clip that we have, giving us an update on what happened or what is happening in Russia, particularly as it pertains to Ukraine. Now, this is something we've been covering, not as much as I normally would from the international perspective. I want to discuss this more at 9:20 with our friend Marcus from Left Flank Vets. We can get the nuance in terms of how do we position ourselves in this kind of global crisis. We'll be discussing that momentarily. But I first want to play this clip. Here's an update on what is happening as it pertains to Ukraine and Russia. Okay, we're going to hold on that clip.
President Vladimir Putin recognized as independent two separatist regions of Ukraine today, and hours later ordered Russian troops to conduct what the Kremlin called a peacekeeping operation in those regions. After Putin's earlier moves, the U.S., the United Kingdom, and the European Union all announced targeted sanctions. Nick Schifrin begins our coverage.
With the stroke of a pen, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed to redraw the map of Europe. He recognized the self-declared republics Donetsk and Luhansk that, for nearly 8 years, have been partially controlled by Russian-backed separatists. In Donetsk tonight, pro-Russian Ukrainians wave Russian flags, after Putin called Ukraine a colony with a puppet regime and warned of further fights.
We demand those who took over and retained the power in Kiev to immediately stop combat activity. Otherwise, the responsibility for continuing the bloodshed will lay on the shoulders of the Ukrainian regime.
And tonight there is worry that bloodshed is already beginning. Putin ordered a, quote, peacekeeping mission into Donetsk and Luhansk. President Biden imposed sanctions on anyone doing business in rebel-held areas, and a senior administration official warned of further penalties if Russia invades. U.S. officials tell PBS NewsHour at least one-third of Russia's 150,000-plus troops on the border have already left their staging areas and moved to attack positions. That's documented by new satellite images of new deployments of armored equipment and troops moving toward the border. The U.S. sent a letter to the UN that Russia was, quote, creating lists of identified Ukrainians to be killed or sent to camps following a military occupation. On Sunday, in the Black Sea port city of Odessa, those Ukrainian people wrapped themselves in the Ukrainian flag and chanted in Russian, "Russians go home." NewsHour producer Volodymyr Solohub was on scene.
This predominantly Russian-speaking city, back in 2014, still had a strong pro-Russian element. Now, 8 years later, and with Russian aggression looming just around the corner, they say that the choice of this city is very clear. It's Ukraine.
We'll be talking about this extensively throughout today's episode. We'll also be joined again by Dr. Carl Mack here momentarily to discuss this, along with all the other stories we're watching. We're also watching and forced to keep an eye on the happenings in Minneapolis with the trial of Kim Potter. Georgia Fort will be joining us to discuss the 16-month sentence, 2 years for Kim Potter, minus time served for the life of a Black man. it almost seems as if we're being attacked on every hand. There are issues that we have to address from every single angle. And so we'll be discussing that as well. I want to bring in, I do believe we have Dr. Mack with us this morning. If he's ready, I want to bring him into the conversation because there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot happening. Dr. Mack, I know you've been tuned into the news over the weekend, everything that's happening in Ukraine. Also, what's happening here in the United States. With the trial of Kim Potter, ending with a 2-year sentence being reduced down to 16 months. We'll be talking about that extensively. First, good morning to you. How are you this morning, sir?
You know, my heart's heavy with the news that you're talking about, Ben. So yeah, my heart's a little heavy about that. But, you know, other than that, I'm cool in the game. My brother, how you doing this morning? You're looking good. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. I'm glad to have you here riding shotgun with me because these issues are heavy. These issues are very serious. And a lot of times, sometimes Black voices are left out of this conversation as it pertains to Ukraine. Thinking of my friend Terrell Starr, who is there in Kiev and sending all of our thoughts and prayers to the people of Ukraine, because regardless of any of the debate, there are lives at stake here, right? There is clearly an aggression. Nobody interprets this quote unquote peacekeeping as peacekeeping. And we do see this as a potential threat to the lives of the Ukrainian people, and particularly those that we know there in Kiev. But Dr. Mack, I'm just curious as like, this is a lot, man. I hate to just kind of segue to something so simple as the overwhelming nature of the news cycle. But I've been doing this for about 10 years. And I have to say this weekend in particular, there were protests on behalf of Amir Locke in Portland, Oregon this weekend. And a protester, a 60-year-old woman, was killed by a right-wing angry white man. This weekend in particular has been a bit overwhelming. And I'm trying to find a way, perhaps you can help. How do we see our way through when everything around us looks so grim? You know, Ben, this has been our experience in this country. And history is very clear, very, very clear. Whenever we as a people begin to raise our voices, begin to get in any semblance of progress as defined by, especially defined by them, let alone defined by us. The forces of racism, discrimination, white superiority are going to double down on their efforts. And so that's the best way that I could tell you. I mean, history is extremely clear with that. We come out of the Civil War, a war that was fought over slavery. What do? They go to Pulaski, Tennessee. They start this terrorist group called the KKK. Right.
That's right.
Black men, all of a sudden we get citizenship. We get the right to vote. They start doubling down on black codes, the grandfather clause. We start moving towards job equalities and the likes. The glass ceiling comes in. Voter suppression comes in. We elect an African-American president. They elect the most negative individual you could imagine to sit in one of the most esteemed offices in the world.
That's right.
We flipped Georgia in the last election. Now they amp up, double down on voter suppression. We began to talk about wanting to understand our history. They sway in with critical race theory.
That's right.
We start, Colin Kaepernick kneels. Now, all of a sudden, it ain't about police brutality. Let's change the narrative to make it about the national anthem. These things, they're just going to double down. And what we have to do, what you and I have to do, what all of us who care about humanity, what we have to do is we have to know that this is going to be the way that they're going to react. And we just have to continue, in the words of Frederick Douglass, when he said that power is never conceded, must always be taken in a struggle. Except in this case, we're not trying to take power. We're just trying to gain equality.
That's right. That's right. That's the perplexing thing about this, Dr. Mack. We're not we're just simply trying to keep them from killing us on so many instances. But you mentioned history, and I have found that every time we root our conversation in history, there's been some insight that provides us the ability to move forward. So, hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
Well, she couldn't hear you, Ben, so I'm going to help you out. Hey, Google, what happened on this day in Black history?
Born on September 9, 1825, in Baltimore, Maryland, Francis Harper was a gifted and effective lecturer against slavery. From her poem Bury Me in a Free Land, I ask no monument, proud and high, to arrest the gaze of the passerby. All that my yearning spirit craves is bury me not in a land of slaves. She wrote one of the first novels to be published by a Black woman, Iola Leroy, or Shadows Uplifted. Frances Ellen Harper passed away on February 22, 1911. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.
And so, Ben, one of the other things that we talked about with this sister, and I want to be very quick, when women were trying to raise their voice about trying to secure the vote, white women completely disavow, so when you talk about our voice, they just completely dismiss Black women in this effort. And so, but now when the fight for the ballot for women was going on, of course, these white women came to Black women. All of us should be unified in this. But as the movement kept going, the white women wanted to dismiss the Black women. So Frances Ella, Frances Harper went to a convention of white women. And I just want to read you what she said in her poem, because she's one of the most prolific speakers of her time. And she said this: her speech in 1866 at the National Women's Rights Convention stated in part, and I quote, "We are bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse of its own soul. You try that in the case of the Negro. You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. While there exists this brutal element in our society which tramples upon the feeble and treads down the weak, I tell you that if there is any class of people who needs to be lifted out of their airy nothingness and selfishness, it is the white women of America." And so, Ben, I think that's what you were just talking about, just trying not to get trampled down on. And so, the lesson, I think, and as you said, that lesson always seems to come to us, from Frances Ellen Harper. We must continue to lift our voices and challenge the status quo in this land that they call democracy. We want to go over there and say that we're concerned about Putin threatening democracy in Ukraine, and right here in America, we're still being treated in that judicial system as second-class citizens. And then when talk about that system, last night I happened to be up kind of late at night, and I was watching the Meek Mill story, right? And the interesting part about that story is that this system is so absolutely tight that even Black folk can come in and do the work of this system. Because in the case of Mill, we saw a Black policeman lie, and we saw a Black judge absolutely use this system in the most aggressive manner you can to push down this Black man. So this system in and of itself is in need of desperate change. But what we have to do is continue elevating our voices to it, as given to us by Sister Mary Frances Harper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to shift to our live shot from Washington, D.C. We're joined by our partners from ACT TV, Jocelyn McCurdy Keats and Alex Lawson. Alex Lawson is the political director for ACT TV, and Jocelyn McCurdy Keats is the D.C. correspondent. Good morning to both of you. I wanted to first thank you for being there in Washington, D.C. We have multiple stories that I need to get your insight on. But first, let's begin with what's happening in Ukraine. Putin's push for quote unquote peacekeeping. Alex, I want to come to you. What are your thoughts in terms of, from a progressive perspective, on what's happening on the international stage?
Yeah, it's a really difficult time. Obviously, what we need is diplomacy. I think most people understand that in war, everybody loses. Most people in the country understand that, but here in Washington, D.C., and unfortunately, it's a bipartisan sort of construct, there's literally a mindset that war is a winnable thing. They spend all their time just focused on it and winning this war or that war, when the history of war is everybody losing, especially the people. The elites usually come out of it okay. So Ukraine is incredibly complicated right now, and I don't know if we want to get into the analysis here. Putin is a tyrant, a despot. It is also true that Russia is not making it up that NATO is encircling it with new countries that want to join the Western alliance set up against Russia. Why that is happening is probably because people are choosing Europe, but that is making Russia and Vladimir Putin scared. The Black Sea is key to Russia being able to project its power. And the Crimean subbase there in the Crimean Peninsula of Ukraine, that is a key part. That's actually the key part of Vladimir Putin's ability to project power in the Black Sea. So it's very complex, but the key fact here is that in this town, all of the so-called smarty pants are addicted to tabletop games where they win. Well, in the complexity of war, in the fog of war, when lives are at stake, with a nuclear arsenal on each side that could destroy humanity at at one mistake, right? Like I think people think of it as like someone's going to overtly destroy the world with nuclear weapons, and they're like, oh, well, that won't happen. Yeah, but you know what will happen? Somebody makes a mistake. Somebody sees a tweet that's fake and reacts to that. Our command and control operation was built in the 50s and is still functioning from the 1970s. We haven't updated how we destroy humanity since the 1970s, and that should terrify everyone. So right now we need as much as possible to lean into diplomacy.
Jocelyn, I want to bring you into the conversation. I'm noticing the enhanced security perimeter around the White House. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a result of our domestic issues, obviously, the fear around the right wing push. There's a lot happening. Tell us from D.C., that perspective. Why are we seeing the increase in security around the White House?
Well, so, we've come to you from Lafayette Square quite a few times over the past few years, and more, this government on both sides of the aisle is pushing to keep people out of the participation process. And it absolutely relates to our foreign policy, because the more distracted people are and the more out of the conversation people are, the more politicians can play these parlor games that Alex is talking about. The average person doesn't want to be going into terrifying wars with Russia or anybody. And for the past 50 years, American power players have profited off of not just ignorance, but disengagement propagated by making people feel disempowered. And that was not true at the beginning of the 20th century, when your average American was incredibly educated about what was going on because they were fighting in those wars. So it's a very complicated time, and you have a portion of the populace that is scared, and you have a portion of the populace that's confused, and that's exactly what they want.
Yeah. Dr. Mack, I want to bring you into this conversation. We're watching this from all sides of the political spectrum as well as the issues. I really just want to enhance this conversation before we move on to the next topic. Brother Mack, jump in there for me.
Well, Ben, I think what Alex and Jocelyn have said is about as good of a summation as you can get. If people, first of all, if we don't get involved and keep our voices heard, the situation that Alex described is very, very plausible. When you lack diplomacy and you got the egos of two countries, two nations that want to be supreme, want to be first, and then you add to that, some cat like Putin, whose ego is really flaming, the idea that these two superpowers can get in such a tizzy with each other, that nuclear bomb, there's a reason why you got nuclear bombs. And to think that these things can happen. So to Jocelyn's point, they would love for us to be confused. And the reason why the elite usually comes out good, and I agree that in the fog of war, damn near everybody loses. Those people who are interested in making money off of wars, most certainly they're going to win, if you will. But the majority of us will absolutely lose. And that is why it is so incumbent that we have Jocelyn, you and Alex right there on the grounds at D.C. to bring us these happenings every day. And for us to continuously try to scratch the consciousness of America to say, do not go to sleep and allow these so-called leaders to act as children on a playground and cause mass destruction to what is going on. So we must stay vigilant and tell our truth as we're telling it. Because, Alex, the picture that you painted, please, folks, do not believe that this is some absurd fantasy that cannot happen. This could so easily happen with the push of a button. So thank you both for your perspectives.
I want to shift gears for a few minutes here while I have you all there in D.C. On Friday, we talked about the new campaign that is pressuring President Biden on drug prices. Senator Warren gave us a report on healthcare stats. Let's take a listen into this clip and begin that conversation.
The average American spends more than $1,300 a year on prescription drugs, more than the citizens of any other developed nation in the world. And in fact, Americans pay nearly 4 times more on average for drugs than similar countries. 1 in 4 Americans struggles to afford their prescriptions, and 3 out of 10 adults did not take medications as prescribed last year due to the cost. That is shameful. No one should have to choose between affording a life-saving medication and putting food on the table or a roof over their head.
There's a lot going on, Alex. There's a lot that we have to keep track of. Tell us why this is so important, obviously for the obvious reasons.
So I think everybody understands that the pharmaceutical corporations are ripping us off. There is maybe a beginning of a shift of understanding that the pharmaceutical corporations, they're not doctors and scientists in lab coats creating the next cure for cancer. They're actually gangsters in $6,000 suits preventing the next cure from cancer. And when they get something, they restrict access to it so that they can buy another golden yacht. It's gangsterism. I mean, in the insulin world, it's literally a cartel of 3 companies acting illegally. And all we're saying to President Biden behind us is, look, President Biden, you have said consistently that you want to lower people's drug prices, and we fought with you as hard as we can, and we have not given up for a legislative victory. But you have the power in the office of the president, in the executive, to lower people's drug prices right now. And that's why we stood with Senator Warren to call on him to do just that. Promises are worthless unless there's action accompanying them.
Activist Addie Barkin, we have a clip from him speaking on the moral responsibility and political need for President Biden to take action. Let's take a listen in.
President Biden and Secretary Becerra already have the existing legal authority to lower drug prices. They don't need to wait on Congress. Build Back Better sought to address prescription drug prices, but with the fate of the legislation up in the air, it is even more critical that Biden act now to make drugs competitively priced and affordable. Not only would this be the morally correct action to take, but also the politically wise one. Heading into the midterms this year, we will all have endured more than 2 years of a pandemic that has caused lasting damage to every aspect of society. Democrats barely squeaked out a victory in the last presidential election, and now we're headed for a big fight to hang on to our thin congressional majorities. And in the calculation about who would best represent them, voters will question whether or not their lives improved under Democratic rule. We cannot take civic participation for granted. We must give people a reason to head to the polls.
Jocelyn, the campaign is #MakeMedsAffordable. It obviously would be a winning proposition. Why don't they jump all over this?
It's a really great question. What we've learned is that Democrats don't like to flex their power, and it's at the expense of the American people. The reality is that pharmaceuticals have taken full advantage of their lobbying power in Washington, and necessary life-saving drugs are 100, 200, 1,000% what they should actually cost in this country. The country that is using government-funded patents to flood the world with medical knowledge and then be appropriated by the pharmaceutical companies so they can, as Alex said, line their pockets and buy yachts and fourth and fifth mansions. It's disgusting. Unfortunately, we do have legislative gridlock, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon, which is why a lot of progressives on both sides of the lawmaking exchange are calling upon President Biden to do what he was elected to do and use the power of the executive, because that's why it's there. There is so much President Biden can do without having to compromise with ridiculous both sidesism, and he can do it now, which is why we need to continue to put that pressure on him.
We have one last clip, and this is Erin Jackson Hill, who's the executive director of Stand Up Alaska, speaking on the importance of inhalers, which is included in this push. Let's take a listen in.
Inhalers are ridiculously expensive. And honestly, I know from personal experience, they can mean the difference between life and death. For the times when I couldn't get my inhaler, I would try to make my old one last, using it until there was not a molecule of medicine coming out to open up my airways. If I got really desperate, I would borrow someone else's if they were available. This is not a way to live. You should not have to choose between your mental health and not being able to breathe.
Wow. Wow, that is a compelling. How can people join this campaign? What do we need to do to actually get President Biden to move on this?
So first, you can go to ACT-TV or socialsecurityworks.org. You can stay involved in the campaign, get emails on it. And this might sound a little silly, but it's not. It's very difficult to get our voices into the White House, like the White House call line. We have not seen that actually is anything other than a blind alley. But Twitter and social media and the ability to connect with the president, White House, Chief of Staff Ron Klain on there, raising our voices and just demanding to make meds affordable now, to use the power of the executive to drive down drug prices, and call your elected officials still. We don't accept that legislative gridlock is some sort of endpoint. It just is what is right now. And the use of executive authority is also aimed at putting pressure on Senator Joe Manchin. So all of the executive action should be like 10 times bigger than whatever is being held up by the senator from West Virginia to put pressure on him to move and to pass these incredibly popular policies like allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Just think of the immorality and corruption of a system where one man came to Washington, D.C. at the behest of the pharmaceutical corporations with one mission: to prevent Medicare from being able to use its purchasing power as the largest purchaser in the world to negotiate prices. Think of that. Think of how ridiculous that is. But then remember that he won. He did it. This guy switched parties. He came in as a Democrat. When the Democrats lost power, he switched to be a Republican, rose up in the committee ranks, and then he got his goal. And then you know what he did, Ben. He took a $2 million a year job at Pharma, literally the next year after doing this. That's the system that we're up against. It's a corrupt and immoral system that especially OMW money, and we have to
go ahead, Alex. Finish that thought, Alex. Okay, Alex, I think we lost a little bit of your last bit of audio. I want to thank ACT-TV for providing this live coverage from Washington, D.C. Alex Lawson, political director at ACT-TV, and Jocelyn McCurdy-Keats, D.C. correspondent for ACT-TV. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
3 a day, I'm on my way, I'ma have you on tiptoes, watching my diamond afterglow. I know you wanna take me home, I'm on my way, OMW, on my way to you, good at what I do, I'm OMW, on my way to you, good at what I do, I'm OMW, on my way, judge me, I'll testify. Catch me on Insta, I'm verified. They want me quiet, I amplify. I'm on my way to the best thing that you've ever seen. You know that you bow to the queen. You lose all your senses and reason. I'll give you something to believe. OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW, OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW. On my way. Yeah. OMW, nothing left to prove. So enjoy the view, taking a picture like Malibu. I'ma have you on tiptoes, watching my diamond afterglow. I know you wanna take me home. I'm on my way, on my way.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Y'all know who it is. Y'all know the voice out on the sound.
OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do.
Good morning, everybody.
OMW, OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW, on my way, on my way. On my way, on my way, on my way. 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 On my way, on my way.
I can't let you go, baby. I just wanna tell you that. No, 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 yeah. All of my friends say, girl, you better take care. 'Cause that man is trouble, you best beware. And though deep down, I know I might be headed for teardrops. Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, no. 'Cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby.
Good morning, everybody. I see y'all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. More is coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. On the clock is starting up shortly. Y'all stay tuned. Good morning, everybody.
Okay, you, though you might be a liar and a cheat too. I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you. Yes, I do. I can't let you go, baby. I can't let you go, baby. 'Cause I love you, I love you, I love you. No, no, no.
With Georgia Ford, y'all. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Georgia. Good morning, Ben and family. Dr. Matt, good morning, everybody.
Minneapolis, our community is still struggling with the recent sentencing of Kim Potter, coming to terms that Judge Chu only gave 2 years or 16 months to Kim Potter. And we've heard from Dante's mother and his father both saying that their son's life was worth more than just 2 years. I want you guys to take a look at a summary of coverage on this topic.
A judge sentenced the former suburban Minneapolis police officer who killed Daunte Wright, Kim Potter, to 2 years in prison today. That was notably less than the standard manslaughter sentence of around 7 years. Potter fatally shot Wright, a 20-year-old black motorist, during a routine traffic stop last April. Special correspondent Fred DeSam Lazaro has our story.
Before today's sentencing in a downtown Minneapolis courtroom, Daunte Wright's mother spoke tearfully about her son.
She took our baby boy with a single gunshot through his heart. She shattered mine.
In December, Potter was convicted of first and second-degree manslaughter. She fatally shot Wright last April when she said she confused her handgun for a taser. The killing sparked protests and clashes with police. Today, Potter addressed Wright's family.
Katie, I understand a mother's love, and I am sorry I broke your heart. My heart is broken for all of you.
In handing down her sentence, Judge Regina Chu compared Potter's crime to Derek Chauvin's killing of George Floyd, as well as the 2017 shooting of a white woman by a black Minneapolis police officer, Muhammad Noor, who received a far longer sentence.
Officer Potter made a mistake that ended tragically. She never intended to hurt anyone. Her conduct cries out for a sentence significantly below the guidelines.
After the sentence was handed down, Daunte Wright's family and supporters expressed outrage.
Kim Potter murdered my son, and he died April 11th. Today, the justice system murdered him all over again. This is the problem with our justice system today. White women tears trumps.
Wow.
Trumps justice. And I thought my white women tears would be good enough because they're true and genuine.
Potter will serve 2/3 of her time, about 16 months in prison. The rest will be on parole. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Fred DeSam Lazaro.
Ben and Brother Mac, you know, it has been extremely challenging to be in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities area over the last few days because it's just so emotional, you know, to hear Daunte's parents disappointed and feeling like that this is a miscarriage of justice. To hear Daunte's mom there make this point about white women tears. And she's a white woman herself, yes. Right? Yes. But she's a white woman who loves a black man and has black children. And so I thought that was, out of everything, probably one of the most powerful things that I heard in response to this sentencing.
But Georgia, one of the most sadistic things that I heard was the judge trying to tell us what the intent was with this woman.
That's right.
With Potter.
That's right.
How do you know what her intent is? So when I'm trying to measure your intent, this is from a black man's perspective. This is what I'm thinking. There is a distinguishable difference between a Glock and a taser. There's a fundamental difference between them. And if by chance I am so confused, it is because I am so afraid of what it is in front of me. I am so afraid that I feel it so threatened that I will grab anything. So is it that Potter was so freaking afraid and has such a bias toward black men that it didn't matter what she grabbed, that in her fear of it? It just didn't matter. So how can this judge tell me what her intent was? And then now here we come again. You have a black officer. And then, wait a minute, I'll go back even further. How dare the judge even remotely say that she can compare this to Derek Chauvin?
Right.
We know what Chauvin got. How can she say we can compare it to the black officer who killed the white woman? We definitely know what he got. But as Daunte's right mother said, here comes a white woman with her tears, and now we want to be sympathetic to it. She took a life.
And yeah. Yeah. And Sister Ford, just to add on to what Brother Mac's saying there, when his mother said, I thought my white woman tears would trump hers because as a mother, Dante writes mother's rights tears were sincere, like genuine. And we see the juxtaposition. It doesn't matter if you're a white woman with a black child. This system will ignore your tears because you have a black child. I just thought that was one of the most disturbing but insightful moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I think that the conversation that has spearheaded out of this too, though, you guys, is the anti-Blackness sentiment. It's not just relevant in the white community. Anti-Blackness is a real thing in Asian communities also. We have a judge here who's a woman of color. And I think sometimes we go into these situations, we go into these rooms, whether it's education boards, whether it's, somewhere within the healthcare system, we go in thinking automatically that because you're BIPOC, that we're allies. And that's not always the case.
That's right.
In other communities, especially if you are a person that is closer to whiteness than a person who's black, and even black people have been indoctrined to have ideas of anti-Blackness embedded in their own biases, their own, psychological thoughts, just all together. Right. And so I think that is the other conversation that has been sparked here is with Regina Chu being an Asian woman. Yes. There was an assumption that she got it, that she was going to have an allegiance for people of color. And that's not what she demonstrated in her sentencing. Right. She demonstrated an allegiance to law enforcement and quite frankly, an anti-Blackness theory or ideology, right? That Dante's Black life was only worth 2 years, months. Which we know will only be about 16 months served.
Right. And Georgia, I'm more inclined to follow you down this path of this anti-Blackness. America has done a phenomenal job of teaching the world this. Let us go back to Sha'Carri Richardson versus the little white Russian girl. She's a white Russian girl, and I'm watching reporters tell the story of how sympathetic they are to her.
That's right.
But I remember when those reporters were given the same story about Sha'Carri Richardson, I didn't hear this level of sympathy. And when you talk about how powerful this system is, that it can indoctrinate one of us. Now I'm watching the NFL with 100 years of its nonsense. And now they go and get Loretta Lynch, a black woman, to come and do their dirty work against a black man. This system has done exactly what you talked about, Georgia. You couldn't have said it more eloquently.
I don't have anything else to add to that except the fact that this violence is now turning on white women who stand with black people. I'm remembering the George Floyd protest. One of the images that's seared in my mind is of that white woman in Seattle who was tackled by all the police there. Here was a white, like a soccer mom, just your average white woman. And she was being tackled by at least 6 police officers because she was out there on behalf of Black life. Also, in Portland over the weekend, where there were protests on behalf of Amir Locke. Georgia, you know that the Amir Locke story well. You helped us, you broke it and brought it to us. There was a group of women who were protesting on behalf of Amir Locke, and they were attacked. A 60-year-old white woman was killed by a right-wing extremist. I'll give you more information on that, but I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that here we are where this violence is not limited to just black people. It has been extended, as it has historically, to white people who stand up for black people.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that in Charlottesville. We saw it here last summer during the protests for Winston Smith. There was a woman, Deanna Marie, who was an ally, who was hit by a vehicle and killed. So that absolutely been this extension of violence is not just towards the Black community now. It's against anybody who's standing in solidarity with the Black community, demanding justice for Black life, right? And it's devastating to see that people in Portland, right? People in Portland are so removed from what happened to Amir Locke, but they felt like this was important enough for them to stand up for. They felt like they wanted to use their voices and their bodies to demand justice all the way in Portland for this young brother who was fatally shot just within 9 seconds of police entering the apartment where he was sleeping. So, for people in Portland to stand up and say this is not right, and then there to be a violent attack against them, deadly violent attack against them, it's discouraging, because I feel like, even after George Floyd was killed, there was a business owner who fatally shot a man by the name of Kelvin Horton, who was a protester. That business owner, similar to Kyle Rittenhouse, I guess Rittenhouse was charged. In the case of Kelvin Horton, there wasn't even charges that were brought forth. And so not only are we seeing this attack against people who are out protesting for Black life, deadly attack, but then we're in those instances very rarely seeing justice served for those cases. It's almost like if you're going to attack someone who's standing up for Black life, you can get a pass to kill.
And Georgia and Ben, again, history is screaming in my ear about this is nothing new. All I want you to do, any of us, just go back and look at the white freedom riders that rode with SNCC, that rode with John Lewis, that rode with Diane Nash, that rode with Catherine Burks. Look at the white folks who rode there. And they would talk about it. You read the stories there. They said that when they pulled them off the bus, the white racists went even harder at the white sympathizers that rode with the Freedom Riders. But this has been a repeated story throughout our history. So for anybody who stands with us, now you get a semblance of what it is to be Black in America, whether you are Black or if you are a white sympathizer or any other sympathizer. But again, that system is so strong that now we watch this Asian woman get up on the stands and take an approach, as you said, Georgia. We would expect her to have some semblance of understanding. But we understand now we're seeing her rooted hatred and bias towards us. I've watched Black judges sit up there with a bias towards their own people. I've watched Blacks in uniforms pretending to be cops figure that their blood is more bluer than associated with that of Black folks. So that's how great a job America has done at demonstrating her hatred for us. And just trust and believe. Don't expect our backs on this day and this time to get no more bent. Oh, it's straightening up, fam. And however you want to take that, you're going to deal with us with straight backs. Trust and believe that.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
And to circle back with the judge, there was actually another protest outside of her home following this sentencing. We know that there was a protest at her home right before the trial started that actually led to the arrest of one of the protesters. Unfortunately, while that protester was arrested, his son was fatally shot outside of his school. And so he was released to attend his son's funeral. And protesters remembered him after this sentencing came out, showed up again at Regina Chu's home and demanded that basically an appeal of this sentencing. And I don't really see this sentencing changing, but it's not going to stop this community from expressing their discontentment with her decision. I also know that protesters are planning to continuously show up at the state capitol because at this point, we are nearly 2 years post the murder of George Floyd, and yet and still we're seeing Black men still being killed by police here in this community, yet and still we're seeing the trials for those killings result in what feels like a miscarriage of justice. The federal trial is still ongoing for the other 3 officers charged for violating George Floyd's civil rights. Then in June, we know their state trial is going to happen. And so the question that people here in Minneapolis are asking themselves is, has this simmer, has it turned to a boil? And what I mean by that is, after Amir Locke was fatally shot, we saw thousands of people hit the street again. And then this Kim Potter sentencing came out, and we're seeing people very upset and re-traumatized. Then this federal trial, let's say those officers are found not guilty. Let's say they don't charge the officers who shot Amir Locke. And there's not a good outcome in the state trial for the other 3 officers. Where does that put the community response? Where would that put the community response? And so these are the questions that people are asking themselves. And I think it would be different if, some of those outcomes happened, but there was actual legislation passed, like meaningful legislation that would prevent these situations from happening again. Right.
That's right.
But it's like cumulative, because all those things could happen. We still have no legislation. I just imagine, and even being a part of this community here, I just imagine the response not really being good. I won't detail that, because obviously no one can foresee the future, but it just feels like the simmer has become a boil. And I truly hope the people who are in positions of leadership, the politicians here, are listening to their constituents, the people who they serve, and taking their requests and their demands seriously.
And Georgia, please remind us all, and my memory has slipped me, the brother who was killed in the jail cell.
Ardell Sherrill.
The nurse came in and was it Sherrill?
Yeah, Ardell Sherrill.
Okay, and so what I want from you, Georgia, is that being that you are on the ground, and we're watching so many absolutely horrific cases that are getting national and international attention, just give us your perspective of what it's like for you to live there. And these cases keep coming up, and as you keep alluding to, you would think that in light of the entire planet focused on George Floyd, that the greater Minneapolis area would be a little bit more cautious, but yet it just continues. So what's it like for you and your take on this?
I mean, the best way to describe it, I think, is that it's unbelievable, but it's not surprising. It's hard to believe that we are here at this point where Kim Potter only gets 2 years, 16 months in prison, the same state that threw the hammer at Mohammed Noor, right? Yes. It's unbelievable that Amir Locke was fatally shot within 9 seconds after the Minneapolis mayor ran on a campaign to ban no-knock warrants. Right? It's unbelievable, but yet and still, because this community was advocating for justice and was crying out for change years before George Floyd was killed.
That's right.
This is the same community that organized and grieved the fatal shooting of Philando Castile and Jamar Clark and Marcus Golden and Cordell Handy and Brian Quinones and Dalal Eid and Isaac Aiden and Jafford Smith and Terrence Franklin, like the list goes on and on and on, right? And so George Floyd was the moment where the world got a window into the injustice that was happening here. But it definitely wasn't like the first time something like that happened in the Minneapolis Police Department or in departments across the state of Minnesota. And so you have organizations like Communities United Against Police Brutality that has been collecting data on fatal uses of force by police departments across the state of Minnesota. So much so, their research is so extensive that when the DOJ launched their investigation on MPD, they reached out to Michelle Gross, the president of this organization, and asked her what would it take for her to share her research and data. And so when you look at the fact that there's been 500 killings in the last 20 years by police in the state of Minnesota, this George Floyd was not an isolated incident. It was the camel. Right. It was the tipping point. It was the breaking point. And it was because it was caught on camera and because it was so horrific, it lasted 9 minutes and 29 seconds. It reverberated around the world as something that was grossly wrong. Right. And so people were willing to stand up for humanity. But in the case of Winston Smith, when it's not caught on camera, you don't have that same outrage. And so I think when you ask, like, what is it like to be here? It's both unbelievable, yet it's not surprising. We're not surprised. The people who occupied in the dead middle of winter, the 4th precinct, or I think it was 18 days. You imagine being outside in the frigid cold for 18 days. But that happened years before George Floyd was killed. That happened when Jamar Clark was killed. An 18-day occupation in the middle of winter, people in this community saying we need change. And what changed? Well, nothing, because then Philando Castile was killed. And then what changed after that when they shut down Mall of America and they shut down the State Fair? Nothing changed.
That's right.
So then are we surprised that we have a George Floyd? Are we surprised that we have a Dante Wright? When every time the community is responding and saying, here's some solutions that we could implement to prevent this from happening again, there's resistance from the powers that be. Right.
Wow.
So then when those changes aren't implemented, the community is not surprised because folks aren't listening. In fact, not only are they not listening, they're actively resisting the solutions that the communities most affected by these issues are offering. So it's unbelievable, but it's not surprising.
Wow. Georgia, thank you. Honestly, thank you for keeping. I mean, I can't even imagine all those names.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your work.
And those are just folks, the ones I can remember. Those are just the ones I can remember.
And
that's the tragedy of it all.
Just quickly, the thing that was amazing is, Georgia, as you were going through these names, you know, all of a sudden it was like, yeah, that happened in Minnesota.
You remember? Yeah.
So, I gotta believe that if you go back and just look at the cops who have committed this, I'm wondering if y'all got like an you've been infiltrated deeply by white supremacist groups, and they decide Minnesota is the place we need to go.
Yeah,
it's definitely worth looking into.
Please be safe out there in all that you do. Folks, we'll be back after this brief break. More of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
Good morning, everybody. Shout out Mama and Daddy. Good morning. Lily, good morning. Alicia, good morning, y'all. Rolling Dragon, Laura Estrada. Brother Chuck Diesel, good morning. Chris Lionheart, good morning to you. What's to be good? What's going on? Nicole, good morning. Queen Abby, I see you up there. Good morning. Lady Lou, good morning. Queen Fingerful, good morning to you. That's right, Chuck. These are support black business. That's right. On and it goes. Good morning. Iris Jones. Courtney SLP, what's up, sister? Amber Layla, good morning to you. Hey, mama. What's going on, Brother Cal? Afraid not, what's going on? XOXXO Bob, good morning. Sunny Wright, good morning to you. Mary C, good morning. And family, don't forget, this Friday, last party of Black History Month, so you know it's gonna be blackity black. Make sure that's all of there Friday, man. We'll have the time for you tomorrow. Brittany Woods, good morning. Bailey, good morning. Ryan, good morning to you. Promises manifesting, good morning. Il Hustler, what's going on, Il Hustler? Brother Tiger, good morning. All right, y'all, make sure that y'all stay tuned. Y'all know what time it is. Yeah, I'm about to roll it, because the song is on. You gotta roll it. All right, y'all, like it or not, it's coming up next. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned.
Y'all know what time it is.
Boom.
Good morning.
Now look good.
Get your coffee, your tea, your drink, whatever it is you need. It's time for Like It or Not, y'all. 9 a.m. to 10:30, yeah. Like It or Not is on your channel, yeah. Politics and culture is free.
That's right, Roller Dragon. You gotta focus into the sleeves a little bit, you know. That's why it was like looking soft like that.
Like It or Not, with Queen Azul, get started now, so stick around. Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around. Oh, Rebecca Azul is coming through. You know she got a good story for you. Oh,
yes, I did. Explains a lot.
This is his show. He's a politics bro. I am your DJ. DJ exclusive. Y'all know who I am. I stay dropping them jams. Like it.
What is the reverb on that thing?
It's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not, it's starting now. Like it or not.
Let's get it. Let's go, y'all. You know what time it is.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, my black people.
Good morning, and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth.
And not Carrie doesn't like it. I was holding out to see if Dr. Matt was going to get it, but he did it.
Because he did it Friday, though. He did it Friday so well. I figured he was going to do it again. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. It is 2/22/22. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you all with us. DJ Exclusive, we missed you on Friday. I know you were traveling. Welcome back, brother. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. I can't complain. I won't complain. There's a lot happening in the news, but that's my job, so I got nothing to complain about. Dr. Mack, as always, it's good to have you with us for this second half. How goes the day?
Man, it's good, especially when I got Bubba back. Bubba, we tried our best to hold it down without you, but I'm going to tell you something, man. Ben was acting up, Bubba. I needed you to be here to be the peacekeeper because he was doing what he does. So, man, look.
I already know, Dr. Mack.
Okay.
You know, it's an important function of this show that I be the punching bag. I think it's a model of leadership that should be demonstrated. I don't know about that much. Anyway, listen, Rebecca Azor is not with us this morning. She has commitments that she had to take care of. So we want to just give her a shout out. I'm sure she's lurking in some chat room this morning. Good morning, sister. I'm sorry, let me do it properly. Good morning, Queen of Azor, before Brother Mac, comes around the corner and slap me across the head.
Right. Good morning, Rebecca. Somewhere out there.
Morning, Queen.
Azori.
Somewhere. Queen Azor. Listen, I want to bring in two brothers who are familiar to our audience. And first is going to be Brother Pascal from the Pascal Show. We haven't had a chance to have him on the show in some time, but he is our brother from another mother. And also I want to bring in Marcus of Left Flank Vets, one of my favorite Twitch streamers of all. Gentlemen, we have a full screen of nothing but black men this morning. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, brothers.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all living?
Good morning. We living, man. We living.
I'm Rebecca this morning. Apparently, they say my name is Rebecca. Good morning, y'all.
Can I say I don't know which time of is this 4 or 5? Time's a flat circle. I've never been on with Rebecca. I think she's dodging me. I don't know what I might have done in the past, but I apologize, Rebecca. You don't have to do this every time.
I was really I was really looking forward to seeing Rebecca this morning, but Queen Rebecca this morning.
Sure.
But next time for sure.
Next time.
It seems like she dodges both of y'all because it's like she dodges Pascal. It takes a long time. And Marcus, I'm just like, dang, Rebecca, what's going on? Now she talking about she about to pull up in a second, so we'll see.
She gonna pull up. She gonna pull up. We got enough. We set this up for 5 people. We don't have a shot for 6 people, do we? I don't think we do. Anyway, I digress.
Hey, look, man. Given that Marcus has been waiting on the Queen, I'm more than willing to drop out so Marcus can have his moment.
Well, Rebecca, you got to open line. You got to open line. Listen, gentlemen, there's all kinds of craziness going on. I want to start with the least. I don't know how you guys feel about this story. Michigan University coach Juwan Howard suspended for 5 games. I want to skip all the way down to G1, Dwayne. I saw this clip on Twitter. I don't know if you all have seen it, but it's an interesting clip. And then there's an explanation as to why he got into this altercation. I want to just take a look at it and see how you guys feel, not only about the altercation, but more specifically, the punishment from the NBA. Let's take a look at Juwan Howard's fight. Now, as you can see this in slow motion, this shows you the altercation, the intensity of it. Now, this stream is coming directly from the team stream, but we can see there hands are laid, confusion ensues, and eventually Juwan reaches across the aisle and lays hands. And as a result, he has been suspended for 5 games. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Dwayne.
This is the press conference.
Yes, I was. I didn't like the timeout being called, and I'll be totally honest with you. Would have the timeout be called with 3 seconds, 4 seconds to go. I thought that was, what I felt wasn't fair to our guys.
What happens between being upset about a timeout
timeout being called and raising it to a point where it looked like you hit another coach in the face. What kind of happens in between to make that happen?
Well, basically, I addressed with the head coach that I will remember that because of that timeout, and for someone to touch me, and I think that was very uncalled for him to touch me as we were verbalizing and communicating with one another. So that's what ended up happening, and that's what escalated it.
Yeah, I guess if you could, expand on that a little more. What?
No, I would not expand on it. I just share with you the story, what happened.
Well, as far as touching, I mean, it's obvious touching with the handshake line there. It must have been more than that.
Oh, yeah, it was more than that. Yeah. Touching me unnecessary wasn't cause for that when we were talking.
Was there anything earlier in the game besides the timeout that could see you?
Oh, no. Wisconsin did a really good job in the second half of making adjustments on defense, give credit to their staff, give credit to the players.
Juwan, your players talked about the family and protecting family, but I guess when it then leads to more players jumping in to what became a fight.
Unfortunately, it was it had like that. Didn't like for it being that way. But you know what? I respect our young men for saying what they're saying as far as we are a family and truly, but did not want it to be in a situation where it escalated like that.
Thank you.
I want to go around the room. What are your thoughts? Let's start with you, Brother Pascal, because I know you're the first one to have the lead.
Real quick, Ben, just some more backstory on the story. The timeout they were referring to. So the game was well out of hand. Wisconsin was up by like 20, around 20 with less than a minute left, and they called it timeout. So that's what Juwan Howard was referring to. Like, hey, I ain't really like it. Y'all ain't have to call that timeout. There was no point in that. And then the coach, you saw what happened after that. The coach kind of touched him. They had some words. And after that strike from Juwan Howard, there was a little mini brawl, a little fisticuffs that happened between some players on the team. So and for a little more backstory, I believe the Wisconsin coach was suspended for 1 game, and a couple players got a 1-game suspension as well. But Juwan Howard got 5 games, which is the rest of the regular season. But he will be able to coach in the conference tournament, and if they make it, the NCAA tournament.
There you go. Brother Pascal, what are your thoughts?
Oh, okay. First off, little dude shouldn't have gone up to Juwan. I'll just say that. First off, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have stepped to him. I mean, look at the reach. I mean, just in comparison of reach, you feel me? It's a waste of time. All right, he was going to get a beat down, regardless. If this was a street brawl, he wouldn't have walked out of there okay. Let's just say that first. Second, Juwan is wrong. He's in the wrong. He should have kept his hands to himself. Period. You are a coach. You are a leader. You are showing these other kids, the players, your team, how to handle yourself in altercation, in a disagreement. You can walk away like a gentleman, and that's what he should have done. That's what I think. Keep your hands to yourself, because no matter what, at the end of the day, when you start putting your paws on people and it's all caught on tape like this, it looks really bad, period. So keep your hands to yourself.
Right. Hey, Marcus, are you into sports ball and fisticuffs?
Yeah. Which, I mean, I was waiting for a meta world piece to come through. But I mean, I agree with Pascal. You know, that's he could have. You know, there's an escalation. You know, we can see the tennis game of aggression going played back and forth. But you know, obviously there's a little bit more layers to this, i.e., what makes a little white dude think I get to step to this man and, you know, have any type of say, or just say like, I need to not only stop where you're moving, I'm gonna grab you, and then like. So, I once again, it's like, what would make someone think that they could just step to this dude and it's going to be okay, you know? And there's a whole lot of biases, and there's a whole lot of just straight up racism, white supremacy that goes into, I get to stop this black man walking, and I get to do whatever I want. Now, what happens after that? Like that you said too, is like Juwan's not a young man, right? This is not someone that's in their 20s, still growing. Like, you're an adult. You're not only adult, you're in a position of leadership. I don't want to talk about position of power. You're in a position of leadership where you're actually teaching young men. And that's where, you kind of lose it all when you can't just kind of sit with it, because at the end of the day too, is putting into hands of somebody that is frustrating, right? I'm getting a little heated just thinking about it. But at the end of the day, he was not threatening. Juwan wasn't threatened. He wasn't going to get hurt or injured. So you got to be able to walk that line and bring your aggression down when you're not actually threatened. And he didn't do that.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, I'm obviously, I'm with Juwan's side here, James. But he's right. Little man didn't pose any threat. That's like me trying to step to Brother Mac, James. I don't pose a threat. Anyway, jump in there, DJ Smooth.
Yeah, Juwan was, wrong. I ain't gonna say he was wrong. I'm sorry, I ain't gonna say that, because the way that the other coach stepped to him and grabbed that man's arm like he was still property or something, no. That was mad disrespectful. It was very disrespectful. And like Rebecca said, these hands are rated E for everyone, and he got what he deserved. Honestly. So, shout out to Rebecca saying that. But man, he just
rated E.
Rated E for everyone. The hell, man, look at not doing Black History Month. Nuh-uh, you still
not doing Black History Month, man.
Not doing Black History Month. Nuh-uh.
Listen, man. Listen, Brother Mac. I'm serious. Not in the year of our Lord 2022. I don't know. I mean, this is not a major story, right? But I think it is really intersecting on how we respond to some of that white supremacy that Marcus was talking about, Brother Mac. Because I don't know exactly how, as seasoned as I like to think I am, I don't know how I would respond in similar moments. But it's, we kind of have to be mindful of those things.
Well, first of all, we have to remember that, Juwan Howard is a member of that Fab Five, so there was a very competitive. Now, I don't disagree with anybody on the point that ultimately he was wrong. But there's, when you are a highly competitive alpha male and the game, there's rules to the game on winning and losing. Let's take football. The game's out of whack, so you're going to take a knee. And instead, the team now charges and hitting you when you're in this relaxed situation. So there's kind of rules to the game, the decorum of winning. You up by 20 and all of a sudden you want to call timeout. It's like, you know what? Not only am I whooping your ass, but I'm going to pour salt in your wounds. Okay, cool. So now Juwan Howard, okay, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to walk through the line. I'm going to be the bigger man. I'm going to shake your hand. But no, not a little white guy got to fucking explain to me. No, let me tell you why I called time. Look, man, I don't want to hear that. Just leave me alone. Let me move on. No. I'm going to explain to you whether you want to hear it or not. See, you're flexing that white superiority. And I already told you, I accept the whooping that you gave me. I'm trying to move on. No, I got to explain. Get out the way.
And actually, that's the thing is, like, I'm mad because the hands went to the wrong person. Right. If someone grabbed, if it was a quick grab of the shirt and he just did a quick, do not touch me, I would feel totally different.
But see, Marcus, Juwan kept trying to say, look, man, leave me alone. Let me go. I said, that's right. I'm accepting.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
he got to make his point. He just got to
which he should have made his point to the Wisconsin head coach. Like, instead of like, that's the thing is, like, he should have made his point right there. If you're gonna put hands on someone, the instigator, the Wisconsin coach, you might as well just give it to him.
Look at Juwan. He's trying to move on.
I know. We agree. Brother Mac, we agree.
So real quick, also on to Dr. Mac's point about just the decorum of winning. So Michigan was down by a lot. They still had their starters in. Wisconsin had already pulled their starters. Michigan still had their starters in. They were pressing, full court pressing. So, I mean, you could say that the other coach was like, man, we done already conceded. Like, we already won. We done took our starter. We taking it easy on you, and y'all still pressing and doing X, Y, Z. So he might have felt some type of way. But I still do agree that Juwan Howard shouldn't have put hands on the man. And I think I was a little wrong about the Wisconsin coach. He didn't get suspended. He got a fine.
He got fined.
And he wasn't even actually the one that got hit it was like their strength and conditioning guy
correct.
that took the blow from Juwan Howard.
He smacked another dude.
But there's a longer video of it of a wider angle that shows after the two coaches got into it, the other guy from Wisconsin came in and had some words towards Juwan Howard, and there was some expletives sent his way. You can't tell exactly what he said, but there was some expletives sent Juwan Howard's way, and that's when he caught the 5 fingers. What did the 5 fingers say to the face? Because it wasn't even a punch. He got him with an open hand.
Yeah.
So
it was an open hand.
Yeah. He was wrong. He deserved to get suspended, I believe, but I do think that other people should have been suspended as well in the altercation.
Yeah. I just look at this and I see so many times where I just be honest with you, white folks instigate stuff, and it's incumbent upon black folks to be able to be more mature, more reasonable, more patient, more rational, and absorb all that stuff in real time. And some days I'm just not there, especially if I didn't. Anyway, I don't go into all that. But
listen, Ben, make no mistake about it. Juwan Howard was wrong. There's another road. But I'm gonna tell you something. I've been in that situation where I'm competitive, and you've won the game, and now you want to just pour salt into me. And then after it's all over, now you're trying to explain to me why you did that Jerry Lewis nonsense. Man, shut up. I ain't trying to hear it. Now, if I say shut up, I ain't trying to hear it, but you want to grab me, hold me, I got to explain to you, Carl. See, now I'd have lost sensibility. I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Especially when you're trying to be the bigger man and you are trying to walk away from it, and it's just like you steadily forcing yourself on me. I have to react. And like sometimes I try to think in my right mind and I try to stay there, but once you keep provoking, I'm just gonna go ham.
But see, I agree with Pascal and Marcus. It's that time that you have to go just super, super, super deep and say, I can't do this because I know what I represent.
Yeah,
I ain't saying
that's right.
I agree. I ain't saying I agree with what he did.
Man, we're talking about a game.
Yeah.
Brother Mac, we're talking about a game. One game. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it's one game. I get it. But at the same time, we talk about one game. Move on. Take it out on the court at the next game, or when you go and you guys compete, again later on. You know what I'm saying? Like, let it go.
I think like one of the important thing too is like there's lines to this. If you're at the corner store, you got a twisted tea in your hand. Someone says an N-word. you can do that. If you're in an Applebee's and someone tries to
Applebee's, who said Applebee's?
Try to say, there's this type of black people, this type of that's when you can slap somebody down. But if you're the head coach for one of the biggest,
you got to carry yourself accordingly. Listen, who said Applebee's? Because have y'all seen that video of that white man?
Yes,
I put it on to go to sleep too now.
Oh my!
I put it on to go to sleep.
Man, if you had a Golden Corral and they had a steak. Throw some chairs. You know what I'm saying? It'll be fine. Big deal.
Pascal, I want to shift gears and come to a story that I know you've been on top of. And I don't know anything about this story other than the visceral response that I get when I think about someone stalking my child. And this is a story of Ava Marjorie, who had been stalked for over a year, a TikTok star who had been stalked for over a year. And finally, as it turns out, their father ended up shooting and killing their stalker. Tell us about the story.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, this whole story is trash to me. Sorry for throwing in the commentary right off the bat.
Nah, do your thing, bro.
Absolute trash. So this TikTok star, I guess, she got over like 1.3 million followers on one account because she has multiple accounts. But she was selling selfies. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So basically, there was a guy who became a super Uber fan, a stan. How about that? And was trying to get in contact with her, like personally. So to skip through all the BS, right? Because she has 1.3 million followers. She's got a lot of people. Oh, by the way, she's 14 years old. Let me say that again. For y'all in the nosebleed seats, she's 14. Okay? She's 14 years old. There's a man who is trying to get in contact with her. He goes and I guess he finds her information by buying her personal information from her friends. So what kind of friends are those? Then when she finds out that he is literally buying content from her friends, like selfies, photos, whatever, you name it, from her friends, she talks to her family and says, hey, what if I just sell him my selfies and stuff myself? Parents agree to this. Let me say that again.
What?
Yeah, let me hit that rewind button. Parents agree with this. Okay. So she contacts this guy. All right. His name is Elliot Justin. I think his name is Elliot Justin, I think. I'm sorry. But she goes, you know what? Why don't I just sell you my selfies myself? You cut out the middleman. I'll be your supplier. I will be your plug. So he agrees to this. So she starts sending out photos and stuff like that. Next thing you know, I guess he was asking for more stuff, like other types of photos that we can't really say on this channel, right? Very unsavory things for a 14-year-old girl. So she starts to back off. This man goes off, sends her a bunch of Venmo payments, like $150, $350, a whole bunch of money, basically trying to say, I'm sorry. Please keep sending me the selfies that you've been sending me, because all he's been receiving are selfies. That's what we know of, right? So because she stops talking to him, he gets really upset. He drives all the way he travels all the way from Maryland, all the way down to Naples, Florida, shoots down their front door, walks into the home. Yes. But what's funny is people like to cut the middle part. So he came in, he busts through the door with his shotgun, by the way. Okay. Father chased him down. He ran off. Then he came back again to the house. Came back, and that's when the father guns him down. Now, what's interesting, and it's stand your ground laws in the state of Florida and all that. And I'm sorry, personally, if you're trying to come in and do bad things to my family, that's right. Yeah, you're gonna have a conversation. With me and my heater.
This thing is deep.
It's insane. But then when you find out later, the more information, like she was selling him selfies, she was selling him content that the parents gave a thumbs up to. Then on top of that, because of all this story, because this story has been developing for months now, she now has a PR agency. She now has her own creative team. Now they're trying to use this to expand this into something more, like she about to become the next big movie star now because of this murder that happened in her home because she was selling underage content to a legal man, a legal adult.
So let me get this right. So the daddy went down to Florida, right?
Excuse me?
No, the stalker.
The stalker went down to Florida. Okay.
The stalker, his name is Eric Justin, I think is Eric Justin was the stalker. He said, apparently he said to her friends, and they heard this through the grapevine, basically, that he was going to come down because he sent her money and he wanted some content. He didn't receive it. So he said, hey, I'm going to come down and we going to have a conversation, basically.
Jesus Christ.
Parents laughed this off, basically saying, he in Maryland, what he going to do? And guess what? He traveled all the way down to Maryland with his shotgun and did exactly what I just told you guys.
I just need to confirm. I'm like James.
He knew where he stayed. Like, that's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Now that's Absolutely. The thing. That's a big piece of. How did he find out where she stayed? That's a good question, James.
Remember, he was paying money to her friends for her personal information, her cell phone, her friends, everything. Yep. So when they found his cell phone, he had a cell phone filled with hundreds of photos of her and thousands of hours of her on, like, from where do you think he got it? TikTok.
Her friends. Wow.
That's wow. 14-year-old girl. I'm just saying, let me ask y'all.
This is a mess.
You have a 14-year-old girl, daughter. Okay. You got kids. Let's just play this. Okay. You got a 14-year-old daughter. Is she on TikTok? Are you allowing her to be on TikTok?
Is she going to be sending selfies to anybody? Hell no. Not with my express permission. Absolutely the hell not.
She might be on TikTok, but best believe I'm gonna know what's going on that TikTok.
Facts.
That's right. I'm gonna be following her.
Highly monitored.
Every single day.
Every single day. Matter of fact, when you decide that you want to make a TikTok, I'm gonna be right there in the background. Who you sending it to?
Dancing.
Let me see it.
I'm dancing with you. Shoot.
Dancing with the gun. Dancing with the gun, pointing at
with
it like,
see
what I have here?
Right.
You about to get her? You trying to hit
in front of
my daughter?
But I'm disturbed. I'm like high key disturbed by the fact that the parents gave permission for this to continue. I know everything else that man did. This is not victim blaming it by any measure. I just have to look at the parents in this and say that's just some stuff that I just don't do. I ain't gonna do that. That's beyond the pale for me.
I mean, for me, I think that this is all the parents' fault. I blame it. I blame it all on the parents because this is your child. You should be watching everything that they do. She is 14 years old. Okay, she got on it when she was 13 years old. She got very popular. She's a pretty girl. I get it. Okay, but at the same time, they're so busy, focused on having her succeed to be some star, rather than actually showing her the value of self, the value of being who she is. Right.
But Pascal, let me ask this question.
Please, Brother Mac.
First of all, I'm probably the weirdest. I may be one of the weirdest folks you guys know. I have never been on TikTok. Never, ever been on TikTok. Never seen it.
You ain't missing
I've seen it, but I've never been on TikTok.
You ain't missing much.
But as I'm explaining this, as you're explaining this, of they're wanting their 14-year-old child, I'm thinking about the Williams sisters in tennis, Jennifer Capriati in tennis, child stars in the movies, except we didn't have the technology then that we have today. So to some degree, I can see the parallel. But unlike most of those, in the case of the Williams sisters, obviously Richard truly showed a care and a concern for his daughters as they were on their way to superstardom. Whereas most parents are just, you burn these kids out, which is why Jennifer Capriati ended up getting, doing drugs. And then how many, child TV stars have we seen go apart? So, I don't know
Michael
the answer.
Jackson. You could throw on Britney Spears. Shoot, everybody. This is the thing where the problem I have right here is, because I agree with you 100%. It's the whole exploitation of their child, exploitation of their youth. They use it so that they can quickly scoop up a bag rather than actually showing the kids, hey, read a book, use your brain, be articulate, protect yourself. Know the difference between a stalker, a full-on textbook stalker, and somebody who actually is a fan, right? Know the difference between, oh, you know what? Actually, even though those are selfies that you're selling to this man, that still can be considered underage content, if you know what I'm saying.
That's right.
Especially if you're selling it to a legal adult, right? 18 and up, right? So you got this going on, but instead these parents are looking at it and going, oh, you're going to be a star. So it's fine. Sell it. Let's make this money real quick.
Sorry.
And see, Pascal, I think that if anybody, when I'm listening to you, I can see the way that Richard Williams dealt with Venus and Serena in the same thing that you're saying. Hey, I know that you're going to be a star, but I need you to read these books. I need your education to be first. So I'm seeing that side of it. And then I'm seeing the other side. So when I'm listening to you and you're saying what ought to happen, it's because I've seen that, we obviously seen that happen with Richard Williams and Venus and Serena.
That's right.
Versus the other side to it. So I clearly understand the point and appreciate it.
Sorry, real quick. Pascal, I'm sorry. I think I missed this when you said it before. The parents knew that she was selling these pictures to this man?
Yep. The parents knew.
So she found out that she was getting that her friends. Now that's the other thing
making that
too.
Money.
What's up with her friends? What's up with her friends though? But they were scooping a bag, selling him her personal information, photos, all that stuff. She was. They were selling it to him, right? So she finds out from her friends. and basically goes to the parents saying, hey, this guy is doing such and such and such and such.
Wow.
And I guess they said, well, why not we cut
out the
middleman and we become the source. We become the plug and to get that money from him.
So that should be like, what is it? Contributing to the delinquency of a minor? Like the parents should be held responsible as well. Like, so they are directly responsible for this man being dead because they helped escalate the situation.
That's right.
Yeah, no.
I can't imagine that. We got a whole bunch of other stories, but it just blows me away, man, to think. But then I look at how some of these parents are doing their kids in this pandemic, and I just can't be surprised anymore that some parents out here really will just put their kids out there like that simply for a bag.
But think about this. And America tried to convince the whole world that Richard Williams was crazy.
That's right. And for the way he was so protective.
That is crazy.
Let me jump in here. We got like 3 more stories to go, and somehow or another I'm going to dovetail this back to Russia before we let you go, Marcus. I want to jump here to the elementary school in Indiana. There's an Indiana public school that is allowing, during Black History Month, no less, students to opt out of Black history. We have an image that I got from Twitter, and it shows a consent form giving parents an opportunity to say that they want their kids to opt out. This is a natural evolution, isn't it, Marcus, of the attacks on critical race theory? And all of a sudden now it's like, no, we just don't want to talk about Black history at all.
Yeah. I mean, this is nothing new. This is just like the latest iteration. It's like kind of like a mix, between just straight up racism and systemic racism, but then also to attack public schools. Not just public schools in Black areas, which have been assaulted for decades, but but public schools across the board. And then this is the thing too, is that like their arguments like fall flat on their face. You'll see a lot of these communities saying it's like, well, we need both sides or whatever. Listen, most of America, Black history is the other side. It is the other viewpoint that most of these communities don't get. And that's one of the most infuriating things about the lies that they just throw out there, is just that they're so false on their face. But yeah, this is the continued assault that there really isn't a organization or movement that's battling against that. This is conservatives steamrolling, and I don't see Democrats out there, and then really there's no other organization outside of the party like Democratic Party that has enough power to do something. And so
that's right.
We're kind of stuck with this. This momentum is going to continue. Like, it will get worse before it gets better.
And bro, Mike, we see this spreading. This is literally this attack on history itself is spreading around the country, but not from the top down. Like, they are organizing. It's fake grassroots, but it is definitely coming from the bottom up, like school board levels. They're attacking every school board. They're attacking individual teachers. They're attacking individual books. They really have it out. If they can erase the history, they feel like they can preserve their future.
Man, I don't know many public schools in the country that are teaching that has a true Black history course. So I don't sweat the details. They ain't teaching it anyway. And again, when Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded Black History Month, it ain't like he was hoping that white folks would accept that we want to take time to learn who we are. So I don't, they're going to do what they do. That is not an issue to me. I mean, now we can make it an issue to say, because it is our public tax dollars that support public schools. So why would we as Black folks give white folks all the power to say what the curriculum is going to be? Because in effect, that is what we're doing. We have basically said, okay, you're going to take our tax dollars, create public schools, but we're going, because you said that's the right curriculum, we've quiet about it. When I'm, if I'm ready to take that fight on, I'm willing to do that. But,
Pascal and James,
we do it.
I mean, I'm with
Pascal.
I'm with Brother Marcus all the way. With Brother Mark, I'm sorry, Brother Mac, I'm sorry. I'm with that all day long. I mean, to me, isn't that American history in the first place? So why isn't this not being integrated in the curriculum? Why do they go out? Why are they going out of their way with this whole trying to ban CRT, trying to ban things that are part of our history, all of our history? It's the thing that created where we are right now. Why is this happening so much? It's so frustrating. And there are so many Republicans that are coming out now that are saying, hey, we are going to do everything. They're using it as their campaigns. They're using it as their way of going, hey, this is how I'm going to grab you guys as Republicans. I'm going to ban CRT. I'm going to ban this. And it's like, wait a second. How are we here? Did we just go back 40 years? Did we just move back 40 years? Because I feel like we took 3,000 steps backwards instead of at least one giant step forward. It's frustrating because it's not the only school that does this kind of stuff. There are more.
So are these schools sending out a letter?
A big part of that is that when you really get inside the history and you understand just how vicious this country was, how vicious it was. And if I was white America, I would be ashamed too. I wouldn't want you to know either. And that's clearly where this is coming from. It is just an absolute shame about what they did. You know, just like now, they want to tell black folks that you shouldn't engage in quote unquote cancel culture if somebody like Joe Rogan says what he says. Well, I want to remind white America of what they did to Eartha Kitt and so many other black actors and actresses back in the day when you just simply label them communist and blackball them. America, you've had a very good practice. You got a very good, long, distorted history of that. And now we say, no, I don't want to listen to Joe Rogan because he's calling us the N-word 4,000 times. Oh, now I'm engaging in cancel culture. You invented cancel culture, America.
Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody.
And shout out Paul Robeson. And I mean, this is like the thing is like has been a 50-year counter-revolution.
Yes.
You know, and that's the thing is, I would say it's worse than white folks wanting to hide the past. Like this, when they say "Make America Great Again," it's not about hiding anything. It's about bringing back something that used to be there, that was fought against, and they've over time wheeled it back. Right? Where are we at voting rights? Where are we at with abortion? Where are we? Come on. I mean, they're whipping people at the border, and they only fired the horse. They're still murdering black folks. We're just getting it on tape.
Why aren't you on camera?
They whipping people at the border, and they only fired the horse. Damn it, Marcus from Left Link. But hey, Pascal, I know you probably got to get out of here because your show is coming up any minute now.
Yeah, a little bit later. Yes. But
do you have more time? I don't want to keep pushing through. If you got to get out of here.
I got some more time. I definitely got some more time.
Because Rebecca's chiming in from the chat through our Slack. Right. James, you see, you said Rebecca might as well head on coming to work today, huh?
She might as well just came in. She said Nancy Pelosi photo is an exact representation of this conversation. Only black love when it benefits their agenda. Once it's done, it's too much to discuss. And that's absolutely right. Our culture, our lives, everything. Once they take what they want, use it, and then when it becomes too much or they start feeling guilty about what they did, then that's when it's too much. Then we shouldn't teach that in school. No, we should maybe we should opt the kids out from learning about this and teach diversity and inclusion instead. F all that.
No, we should come up with a letter that to send out to the kids so we can opt out of the whitewashed American history that they teach in every
that part, Dwayne.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
All together.
While I was watching this, while y'all was talking about this and I was looking at the letter, I was thinking back to like when I was in school, it took damn near an executive order. It was like hella high water just to not have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You know what I mean? But now they sending out a letter like, oh yeah, you don't need to learn about this black stuff we teaching these kids this week. So like it just don't make no sense.
Well, Brother Mac mentioned something about how historically they label everyone as a communist and they use that as a way of attacking us. I want to go to X1 from On the Clock, Dwayne. There's a group of Nazis, actual Nazis. You'll see in this video that they're carrying a Nazi-inspired flag who in Rhode Island decided to crash a book reading because they didn't like the subject that was being read about. What was being read about was the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx short book. I suggest everyone reads it. These Nazis did not want that to happen. Let's take a look at that clip.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Red Books Day at Red Ink Community Library. What you just saw was a video put together by some of the members at Red Ink, which highlights the global reach and importance of the Communist Manifesto's message. With the banning of books in today's political climate, this is an especially significant event. Some may be asking, what is Red Books Day? In the spring of 1848, Karl Marx and Frederick Engels published the Communist Manifesto. Today, February 21st, 2022, is the 174th anniversary of its publishing, which is internationally celebrated as Red Books Day. We have people that are reading right now that are from Brazil and New York City. There are people in Ireland and India, in South Africa, Philadelphia, and New York. And at Red Ink, we have, besides the Communist Manifesto here, we have all sorts of literature. We have journals, we have contemporary socialist criticism, we have children's books, we have a little bit of everything. For more information about us, visit redinkri.org. For more information about Red Books Day, go to redbooks.org.
The proletarian movement is the self-conscious, independent movement of the immense majority. But in order to oppress a class, certain conditions must be assured to it under which it can at least continue its slavish existence.
Scary, guys.
They're not in substance, yet in form. The struggle of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie.
What's the problem? Why are you interrupting me?
Struggle. The proletariat.
I'm standing right here. I'm not getting knocked out.
First of all,
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. 50 Nazis just descended outside, so we're going to finish this with the discussion afterwards. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Workers of the world, unite. Thank you so much.
I just have a general question for the whole group, and anybody can jump in. Why is it more acceptable to be a Nazi in America than a communist? I'm just kind of observing the ascent of Nazism all around the country, and yet you still can't even read the Communist Manifesto without Nazis pulling up on you. Anybody who wants to jump in.
But Ben, the other thing is, think about what we've been talking about a lot, and that is, the way that capitalism has exploited folks today. It doesn't make sense that you can look at the amount of wealth that has been accumulated by, say, Zuckerberg, Bezos, those folks, and then what has happened to the average hourly wage in this country during that time that they've accumulated such billions and billions. So, what is the Communist Manifesto talking about? It's literally taking a look at capitalism and saying, hey, you might want to watch out for capitalism because it could lead to self-destruction. And now, here comes communism or socialism, if you will. So I don't know what's so dangerous about that scares folks, but, here we go.
Brother Marcus.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought I was going to be the lefty on here, but apparently I'm amongst comrades. No, but this is the thing. And that's like, this is where I hope it puts into stark distinction, and it takes a while to get over just U.S. propaganda, that saying words like socialism and communism, these aren't bad. Like these are things that have been described to us over time, in a way. But like when you see just people trying to read a book, and who shows up in response. Now, if I ask you, which side are you on?
Come on, somebody.
It should not be too difficult to see, right? And this is where, honestly, and Brother Ben, I'm happy that you have the discussions and the talks that you have, because there's nothing scary about socialism and communism except for the elites. And
that's right.
The people who want to exert power over people, those are the people who have to fight against socialism. And so if you're hearing this for the first time, look into it. You like Communist Manifesto, that's like 70 pages. But I mean, like, go beyond that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, go beyond that. If you're like the Black radical tradition in the United States, some of these groups, they're straight up taking these teachings from Marx, Engels, and they're expanding on them, and really, you could just look into our own people, right? Look into our own people, and you get those stories. I almost dropped an F-bomb. Sorry, but
you're amongst comrades.
But that's the thing too, is that's why when you start getting a little bit of left, you also understand that security and defense is extremely important, because it's Nazis today, but. And that's at the end of the day, was it straight up Nazis that killed Malcolm X? Was it the Nazis that got Fred Hampton?
Come on,
like this is
all the way around the board. Yeah. No, finish that thought, Marcus. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying that's where I'm leaving. Like, look into who which side are you on? Look who are killing the people that are in the Black radical tradition that is stemming from some of the teachings of socialism, right?
Yeah. Brother Pascal, I want to ask you a question. Are you now, or have you ever been associated with the Communist Party?
Damn.
It's just the McCarthyism just jumped out of me real quick. It was just a flashback.
It's been a great show, y'all. We enjoy your day today. And
it was a joke. It was
gonna save us.
Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that like button. Peace out.
Right, hit that like button on your way out. Hey, Pascal, that joke for you.
Don't answer that question, because it will be used against you in the United States of America. But I digress. Brother Pascal, what are your thoughts about this? These people pulling up, and then before this, the top of the hour, tell everybody where they can watch your show.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll answer the question first. Marcus and Brother Mac both said it very, very well. So I'm not going to add to it. Okay. That was very eloquently put. But I will say this, though, too. I'm not surprised by it. I'm really not, because here it is. What if those guys were on the other side reading Mein Kampf? They were all together reading Mein Kampf. People aren't going to, you tell me people aren't going to be outside putting up Black Lives Matter, or various groups aren't going to be hitting the windows and stuff like that, protesting. So to me, this is not a surprise. I feel like this just goes with everyday controversial content out here. Not sitting here saying that I would want them to be reading Mein Kampf. I just want to make sure that's abundantly clear. I'd be on the other side, bashing on the windows and protesting against that. I don't want to get it twisted, okay? But at the same time, this is not a surprise to me. If they have that's the scary part. That is the scary part. But I feel like if the shoe was on the other foot, we would be outside, bashing the windows, saying "Hail to the Gnaw" as well. Put that there. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I think that this goes into like a very, very difficult contradiction to deal with, though. Is what do you tolerate in society? And there's nothing intolerable about workers organizing. There's nothing intolerable about the working class gaining solidarity and trying to create a better world. There is a whole lot of intolerableness in the Nazi ideology, in fascism. And so this is where there is no reason for anyone to step up to a book reading of the Communist Manifesto, and say, hey, stop reading it. There's a lot of reasons why stopping the the spread of Nazism is important, and you need to fight back against that. So that's, for me, that's where you're drawing the line. It's like you could tolerate a lot of things, but you can't tolerate intolerance.
Right. And Marcus, one of the things that you said that I think is extremely important is America has taught us to be afraid of words like socialism. So
that's right.
Maybe we should give you some examples of socialism. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, public schools. These are all examples of socialism that they try to make the big boogeyman. But I'll leave it there. And there are others.
Yeah, and that seems like that is the tiniest little steps towards socialism, right? Just the guarantee of basic needs. That's just the tiniest little steps towards socialism. You know, when you start getting to, you know, worker ownership, and actually I brought, like, when we were talking about the NFL, and I asked, hey, if the players get to vote, or we have more black coaches, that worker power, worker decision making, and that being able to solve problems, that's socialism. And when it comes to our society and how things are built, are we building rockets, right? If workers get to decide what's made, are we building rockets for Jeff Bezos anymore? Are we deciding to build mega yachts for Zuckerberg? No. No one would decide to do that. We decide to fix the bridge before it falls down. We decide to build a new school.
Infrastructure. Yeah, those roads and that infrastructure, the electrical grid, all of those are examples of socialism that we are now making. If you just put the word socialist out there, oh, you're the boogeyman. When we're living it, it's permeated all through our lives right now. So, go ahead, Brother Marcus.
Gentlemen, we're gonna go to a break so we can give Pascal time to get out of here, and we're going to keep the after party public today. Brother Marcus, if you can hang out, feel free to. Brother Pascal, I know you eventually have to go. Tell everybody what time they should be tuning into your show.
Oh shoot, within the hour. So I'll be on sometime in the hour of 9. I still got some things I got to put together. But you can go over to youtube.com/The Pascal Show and hit that subscribe button and join in on the conversation if you don't want to hang out with them in the after party, which makes no sense to me. They would want to stay for the after party, right? Why would you tell them to leave? You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Because there's enough for everybody, man. We reject the scarcity mentality. That's another tenet of socialism. I digress.
Hey, Pascal.
Let's do a quick break.
Pascal.
Oh, no.
What do you call an anti-vax nanny?
I don't know.
Mrs. Pfizer.
Watch out, get ahead, watch out, get ahead, watch out, set it up, bet you I shut it down, watch out, get a win. I don't really want to come against the winner, got a finger run up in on a grenade.
All right, y'all, we appreciate y'all. After party is stay public today. Y'all make sure that y'all stay tuned, man. And also, drop the music real quick. There is an update. Looks like the jury has reached a verdict in the Ahmaud Arbery federal case. So it looks like court will be starting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure that y'all get those updates and stay tuned. After party is public today, y'all. Good morning again, everybody. Shout out to Pascal for joining us this morning, and also Marcus from Left Flank Vets, man. We appreciate y'all greatly.
I'ma need safety. Tell her I can't snake me. Ray gun off safety. My girl so tasty. Tell her it's your world. She want the two-tone spaceship. Blow smoke screen daily, so the stress don't faze me. I'm going. I keep it factual. I'm on sabbatical. I'm out in Central America.
Really cool is blacker than my lips, blacker than Whoopi's gums, blacker than Bernie Mac, blacker than Wesley Snipes, blacker than the darkest part of the day.
Turn it up loud when you hearing us. We live and it's good in your area. My mama proud, she tearing up and it's going
I'm
down.
Talking black.
Aroused by these massive stats. Like 100 pounds running big laps till the sun is down like 100 miles. Tinted frames on me leaning down. I'm winning now. Been a while, you ain't like me then, but how you like me now? Real one, if I hold you down, I'ma keep it there till we in the ground.
All right, y'all, I think we are ready to come back. Yes,
now, treat it set back like a step back.
Yes,
yep. I got the
all right, y'all. Welcome back.
Clear. All the homies on the flight list.
Blacker than the keys on the piano.
Got a big lit. Sex with the incense, got my
blacker than the deepest.
I'ma need safety.
Blacker than the back of
Ray gun off safety. My girl so tasty.
Blacker than the blackest black hole in space.
No smoke screen daily, so the stress don't faze me. I'm going. I want a girl for the mouthpiece, so right there, right on my face.
All right, welcome back.
Bitch, she like my character traits. I never stop for a break.
Oh man.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. We have
blacker than the pale Dr. Max head.
I missed it. Here we go. What? I'm all discombobulated. This doesn't normally happen. Where are we? Is this the after party? Right? No, I'm joking.
It's the after party.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the after party. Marcus, thank you for hanging out with us. Brother Mac, as always, it's a pleasure to have you riding shotgun and wingman and DJ exclusive. Is not a party unless you are here until you've run all through it. I asked this at the beginning of every segment, but I just want to check in again. It's been a heavy day. How y'all doing?
I'm black, y'all. So I'm good.
What are you talking about? What was the black singularity thing?
Yeah.
Who said that? What was the black singularity thing? The black hole thing. Rather.
Oh, I'm talking about the party that's Friday. How black is going to be. Blacker than Whoopi's going. Blacker than my lips.
Oh, okay.
Blacker than back and forth Whitaker's neck. Blacker than the hair on Dr. Mac's head because he light skinned, so that's really black. Blacker than the black hole in space. You know, it's just black. It's just like black. Blacker than
smoker's lips.
Yes, like my lips, as I said. Black as my lips.
Oh, I was talking about mine. Anyway, I digress. Welcome back to the after party, everybody. I want to jump to a couple of the stories that we're watching and recovering. I kind of want to. I wish it was kind of time for us to just laugh, right, and just kind of kiki about a whole bunch of stuff. But there's still a whole bunch of other stories that we gotta discuss. And Marcus, particularly, one of the things I wanted to bring you on, and why we're still public, is because of what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia, and from like this really. It seems like a difficult position for some of our friends on the left. And, obviously you represent the left flank. It's in your name. So you represent like the left of the left. And, I'm in that orbit somewhere, depending on who you ask. It's been a real difficult time for some of our comrades to navigate this particular situation, what's going on in Ukraine. And I know this is separate and divorced from the reality of the people on the ground. Sometimes when we talk about these issues, globally, we frame them from an American perspective, which is wrong to begin with. But I think there's a lot of meat on those bones. Where are you in this whole thing, and what have you been watching? And what are your thoughts? We have a lot of clips and everything, so we can just get that conversation going in earnest.
Muted.
Marcus, you're on mute. I think you're on mute.
My bad. I do the same thing on my own stream. I'll be like getting going. But no, I think that like this is a difficult thing. Is like there's a lot of history, there's a lot of context that are coming into this, and really at the end of the day, like you said, there is a power struggle going on that is really not concerned over the lives of the Ukrainian people. And that's where really on the left where the difficulty is. I think is not only not knowing what the take is, right? What's the hottest take that's going to get all the likes and retweets, but more importantly, there's not even the ability to do anything about it. We're really on the sidelines, just watching, watching what happens. And so for me, I mean, I think I was a little surprised, I guess at the speed of Putin kind of not only declaring the two regions, independent of Ukraine. Because, I thought it was going to be kind of the similar thing to Crimea where, you have this buildup, you wait out the media cycle, and then, you just kind of can move in and really, kind of annex regions without having any, type of shots fired. Within these regions, there's been a civil war going on since 2014. Every ceasefire agreement has been broken into the tune of like hundreds of broken ceasefire, moments. And this is like a both sides, type of thing. And I don't know. I just hope whatever happens, it doesn't escalate to the point where these whole regions are destabilized. Because in my view, that's the real goal. You look at, who is benefiting from this situation. Well, I know that Raytheon and Boeing and General Dynamics, all their stocks are going up, up, up.
That's the scary thing about this, Brother Mac. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
And then also on the side of that, there is this jockeying for oil and natural gas, trying to push a coalition of Saudi Arabia, UAE, which are not known fantastic democracies. Just going to throw that out there. But we're trying to get their oil and natural gas into Europe to block out Russian oil and natural gas. So for me, when, Smedley Butler said war is a racket back in like 1930, this is where you're seeing that these power brokers are actually pushing and driving these narratives. And it, once again, is no help to Ukrainian people. This isn't helping feed children. This isn't helping schools get built or kids learning to read. This is not helping any of it. And, I don't know what to say, right? Because there is nothing. We're just watching. We are where we are.
We are on this in a lot of ways, Dr. Mack. There's a lot of international stories that I feel personally helpless on and I can't do anything about. But then if I broaden this conversation, there's just a lot of shit going on right now. Like, we got the possibility of World War III. I mean, and that is much more likely today. Let's just be realistic. It is much more likely today as a result of Putin's actions yesterday. In the backdrop, we still got the pandemic. We still got the whole, climate change is coming around the bend. It's almost like this timeline can't get enough of existential crises, so to speak.
But Ben and Marcus, you did an excellent job of laying out some of the issues. And I think the one issue that you didn't touch on, and I want you to, just so that our viewers can understand, sometimes when you get into politics, you get into geopolitical events like Russia, Ukraine, Crimea, it's like, damn, how do they even know about, all these things? And it could be confusing. But in order to try to make it, even more simple to folks, another issue that is at the core of this is NATO. So if you could explain to us why NATO is an issue, what Putin wants in regards to Ukraine and NATO, why, and then look at it from his eyes of what NATO is doing the way Russia sees it.
Yeah, no, and this is where
great question.
I want to make it clear, Putin is an authoritarian. He's a big piece of shit, right? Like, just not even going to hold it back, right? But looking at things in the realm of geopolitics, he is using the narrative of NATO expansion, which it has. Originally, NATO did have a verbal agreement. And especially when we talk about end of the Cold War, or not, end of the Cold War, Berlin Wall coming down. There was a understanding that NATO stays where NATO is and it doesn't push east. And those Soviet, and that's like part of off of that deal. You do have a continuing destabilization, a continuing of demonizing of Russia. This like under Boris Yeltsin. That creates a certain contingent within Russia that is, extremely aggressive or extremely defensive to the West. And this is where Putin comes out of, right? Yes, former KGB, so a brilliant and equally evil, right? Of the amount of what this person can do. But what is the motivation there? Or what are the narratives that he's using? And it's NATO expansion, because that's the thing is yes, as this whole time where you get this ticker of now there's 95,000 troops at the border from Russia. Now there's 100,000, every time. What usually we don't see is that there's been more deals with the U.S. in former Soviet blocs as far as getting military bases. There was just a tank deal to send, Abrams tanks to Poland. That was announced, I think, yesterday. The increasing deployments, and the amount of troops that are going into Europe. So there's just always this tit for tat, build up. And from Putin's side, he's saying, to the Russian people, look at what NATO is doing. And just like how, Trump had played the strong man, but Putin's just a lot smarter. He's looking at what the United States, what NATO is doing and saying, this is aggression against the Russian people and we must defend ourselves. And
so Marcus,
that complicates a lot.
Yeah, and if I can add to it, even the term that, the acronym NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO was set up, after the World War, NATO was set up to literally take the military and try to use it for peace. So basically, all these nations would come in and be a part of NATO. And then they would agree that if you attack one, if you do something wrong to one, you do it to all. And basically, it is supposed to use the military for peaceful means. So in the case that Russia wants to invade Ukraine, or let's say the United States wanted to take over Mexico, wanted to go in and just take Mexico. As part of NATO, NATO says America don't do it. Now, if America decides to do it, all these nations pool their military together and they say, okay, we're going to come after you if you do that. So in its simplest way, and Marcus and Ben, if I'm oversimplifying it, please correct me. But literally that is the way NATO is set up. And so what Putin is saying is that, look, there was a time when you said NATO would not advance, but then when you had the breakup of the Soviet Union, all of these various components that used to be part of the Soviet Union started joining NATO. So in effect, NATO was beginning to surround Putin. And now Putin is saying, tell Ukraine they can never, promise me, tell the world, let's sign a treaty that Ukraine can never join NATO. And America saying, look, we can't tell Ukraine what to do. Ukraine saying, I ain't agreeing to that. And Putin saying, okay, fine, my military is sitting at the border. Now, if I got that wrong,
I mean, no, that's it, and like, this is where we, I think that we kind of hit on it earlier. It's like, I think that should be on the table. I think Ukraine joining NATO should be on the table. And when I say that, really? is just something willing to be discussed, because it's not going to happen anytime soon. You might as well throw it on the table to say, if we do talk about this, can you move some people back? Like, as a way to actually extend diplomacy, because this is something, and this, there was a meeting between Chancellor Scholz from Germany and Putin. Chancellor Scholz said, listen, expansion of NATO isn't even on the docket. Everyone knows it's not going to happen anytime soon. The camera pans over to Putin, and this dude couldn't help but smirk. It's the open secret. Everyone knows Ukraine isn't joining NATO anytime soon. Yet it is one of these linchpins that is kind of like this jockeying thing. And so, from my opinion, I would say, if everyone knows, you might as well just say, we're putting it on the table. We're willing to get to this discussion if you start pulling people back. But with that, also would have to come America saying, we're also going to pull some of our armaments back. And that demilitarization should be the goal.
The thing that I like being in this conversation is that you and I had a very visceral reaction to Marcus saying it should be put on the table. But then when you listen to Marcus, the thing that I love is that you have totally embraced that at all costs, let's use diplomacy. And if that's what'll bring Putin to the table, then you're absolutely correct. So I'm backing off of my visceral reaction to what you're saying and just realizing the genius of what you are doing. You're not saying I'll agree to it, but you are saying it ought to be on the table. And I so appreciate it, because Ben, you and I was about to flip over right now.
When he said that, because I don't listen, Marcus, I know a lot of people in our particular orbit, probably wonder why you come on my show, and then wonder, like, if Ben is a leftist. But then I'm sitting here wondering, did Marcus just say that we should put NATO for Ukraine on the table, which honestly is one of the most Machiavellian, hardcore diplomacy moves? Because at that point, then Putin is like, okay, so now everything I've done has to stop, because now we do, you cross into Article 5 and everybody's going to start. That's a pretty bold move that I've ever heard from a leftist, man.
I mean, honestly, too, like, if I wanted to give you my leftist take, it would be, there needs to be a coalition of working class people that stands in internationally solidarity, that denounces the people who are trying to control our daily lives. Now that's my leftist take. I'm thinking in what's real, in the fact that we on the left, hey, progressives out there, I'm gonna tell you something too. You don't have any power either. You know, we're all just screaming at the same people trying to get something right. We're getting denied health care. We're getting denied our voting rights. We're getting denied. Bridges are falling down. Like, that's the thing, is like, we need to have a realization too that, like, yeah, that's not exactly that left to say with geopolitical terms, put it on the table, get them to the talking point. But the thing that's frustrating is that that'll never happen. You know, the military industrial complex, the oil and gas corporations,
Marcus,
they're the ones that are kind of pushing these things.
Marcus, let me ask you this question, Marcus. Play it out. Tell me, how bad could this go? Could this go bad? And if so, how bad?
I don't think it's going to go World War III. I think it's going to go, like, if the worst case scenario is they just allow fighting to continue, and a region is destabilized, that then allows to further escalation, you know. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that and U.S. has said as much. There's no U.S. troop that are going to come to the defense of Ukraine. You know,
okay, so if Russia invades, if Russia invades Ukraine, you know, forget this peacekeeping mission thing that everybody knows is a ruse. But if they invade Ukraine and all-out fighting starts, you know, and I know at one time, you know, you talked about whether or not they would attack NATO possessions. But if Russia invades, and I'm not beyond Putin not invading, because the bottom line is to be able to put 150,000 troops around that border along with infrastructure, that's an expensive little show of saber rattling. And given his ego, given Biden's ego, given NATO's ego, because the other part that I think is watching is if he invades and he takes Ukraine, the other thing is China is sitting there going, I think we're just going to go mount up and go get Taiwan now. Because we've seen that NATO is toothless, clawless, so we're going to go do it. So there's a lot of precedents that I think is being set here. So, you know,
that's
why I'm asking you.
I think, like, I don't think we should conflate, you know, China and Taiwan, you know, with this. You know, I think there's the pretty different situations.
Is it?
But I do think that there's some different situations going on.
But I mean, what I think is similar, Marcus, is that Taiwan wants to be independent, and China saying, no, you're going to be a part of us. That's the similarity. Now, I get that the issues may be different, but the similarity is Big Brother is saying to the little redhead stepchild, come on in. You're going to be part of the fam.
And Brother Mac, if I could add just one more detail to that, to me, I think it's when we fall into this area of real politics, like realism, like the academic study of realism in politics, the way Henry Kissinger built this world. When you think about that hardcore politics, it does become kind of a one-size-fit-all blanket approach to geopolitics. And I think some of that is not only how we got here, but I even hear it in your analysis. It's like you're talking about, let's play if we're going to play hardball, let's play hardball because that's the nature of the world. But then I simultaneously hear you got a dichotomy going on there. You're like, the real world requires real politics, but then the world we want requires solidarity. Talk about that real quick before we drop this next video.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly that, you know, and like going back to the frustration that a lot of people feel, like saying, you know, people want to have a right, you know, opinion about all types of issues. But at the end of the day, we don't even have the ability to create the needs, you know, and that you know, or even fix the problems that we have within our own communities, you know. And it's very chauvinist to think that we have some type of, you know, force outside as well, and that's what needs to be built. You know, there needs to be an international community that is strengthened, right? I think these things are being built and constantly, but that's the real That's the real rub. You know, you were talking about the Communist Manifesto earlier. Like, what's actually going to stop this? Well, working class people uniting against people that are trying to force us into these antagonisms. You know, that's the only way. Exactly. That's the only way off of this ride. You know, and if we don't, there's going to be just more and more kids, right? Like, who's fighting the wars? It's kids.
Marcus, listen, Marcus, I get that utopic viewpoint from an American standpoint. But then how do the communist people, how do the people in China who have embraced the communist style government forever, ever, and they don't have that voice? You know, I get that we could raise our voice to affect change in this country. But how does that change look in Russia or China, where you got communist governments and there is no voice like that?
Russia is not communist. Russia is capitalist. Putin is a capitalist. You know, you know, they're very similar to what like the US has. And you know, and like that's where too, it's like when it comes to China, there was a people's revolution that, like, they have more turnout as far as voting than we do. I'm not going to sit here and dictate what another country does. And also too, like 8 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty, you know, and that's not, and like when you talk about even like, oh, there's social, what is it? The social credits, like we got credit scores here, right? We do that. So this is where I think like things are a little bit different when you talk about investment in high speed rail and just transportation. You talk about the zero COVID policy. We got 1 million Americans dead, you know. So like this is where, you know, I do think that the government in China does better to secure just basic needs for working class people than the United States by far. The data proves it. It's just fact. And that is, you know, and like we could definitely go into a very long conversation over the, you know, maybe the speed or the transition from capitalism to socialism and then communism that China is going through. But at the end of the day, self-determination is important. And that's actually when you talk about. I just got to say to you, man, Marcus, I just got to say that, you know, I absolutely love your thought process, man. I am absolutely turned on by it. So, man, I'm going to challenge.
Go ahead, Brother Mac.
I was going to say, I appreciate it.
I was going to say, we're going to test our range here. We're going to go all the way from Kiev to College Park. Y'all ready? We'll buckle up for the last 2 minutes of this day episode. I got my feelings hurt this weekend. Okay, James, I don't know if you saw this video. We coming all the way to College Park. I have been saying for the last 5 years that I am from Atlanta. Now, listen, I shouldn't have my feelings hurt about this because I've never lived anywhere more than 5 years. Every 5 years, for whatever reason, I move. But there's an artist who's really from Atlanta by the name Amaretta the Great, who kind of put it in perspective. And I can't close today's episode out without playing this because I think this video is somewhere near 10 million views across all social media. Apparently, a lot of people want to make sure you understand that we ain't from Atlanta. Play the clip, Dwayne.
Right, so the subject ain't gonna beat around the bush. Answer this, you say you from the A, right? Where zone are you from? What hood did you live? Where hospital bed were you born? Look, I know it sound crazy, but I'm a A, baby. I gotta start pulling for card. We had to live in this zoo where you don't make it out, so I don't give a fuck what they say. Look, if you niggas ain't grow up in APS system, you bitches is not from the A. And you from Gwinnett, nigga, up that perpetrated step back. Talking about you from the outskirts, could've killed that. Rep where you from and don't rep where you home. No Air Force claim around the world, know they felt that. Earned out my stripes and I got my respect. The whole city know I'm a beast. Look, if you not from this side and you don't know the facts, just chill and repeat after me. Calais Park, it's not Atlanta. No, it's not Atlanta. Latonia, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Claycoat, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Decatur, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Gwinnett, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Roswell, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Fort Park, it's not Atlanta. Nope. Lynburn, it's not Atlanta. Look, the North, it's not Atlanta. No. The South, it's not Atlanta. No. You niggas, it's not Atlanta. No. You
use the N-word, but I didn't get a chance to edit the N-word, but my feelings were hurt, James.
Ben, you ain't know that, bro. Just let's be honest. I mean,
I knew it.
If Yeah, if your stuff don't say if you can put Atlanta on your stuff and still get your mail, okay, yeah, it's Atlanta. I can put Atlanta on mine and I still get my mail. But now certain areas, if you have to put Riverdale, Gwinnett, East Point, you have to put that on there. There were no lies being told. Now what? Now she did say one. Lindbergh, I'm just like, girl, that's Atlanta, girl. You got to claim. If you got to claim, you got to claim all of it now, because Atlanta, that's Lindbergh, Buckhead, that's Atlanta too. You got to claim all that, sister. I don't know what part you from. Oh, she probably one of the 4th Ward girls. Yeah, she's straight from 4th Ward.
Listen, James. Listen. Now,
the beat was hard
though. I don't
though.
claim any city. I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'm from. I've lived everywhere, but I don't know. It hurt my feelings anyway. But then I was bopping too, like, because it was a bop, so I had no choice. It's one of those things. There's somebody call you out, and it's so good you got to share it anyway. So I think I retweeted that like 20 times.
Oh, let me ask you, Ben.
From Atlanta.
Ben, you were never from Atlanta anyway, Ben. You only stayed on the outskirts. You stayed outside of 285. So yeah, you were never in Atlanta anyway, brother.
Oh yeah. No, I'm good outside of. But see, on the county level, we didn't have. My city wasn't incorporated, and so we were taken care of by Fulton County for many, many years. Technically, I got a little bit of cover. But I ain't going down in flames. Shout out to all the rest. I ain't from Atlanta.
We use Atlanta Public Works.
Yeah, I did. I paid.
Actually, Marcus, they probably didn't. They probably didn't at all. It was a whole nother subset. Was it no, Ben? If it was, then yes. Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
You should have
straight up. My water bill. Shout out to those folks up there, because anyway, never mind, brother Mac.
Hey man, I ain't got no dog in that fight.
I ain't from Atlanta. Matter of fact, Atlanta Public Works. I ain't from Atlanta. I ain't from.
Look, I ain't from there. No way. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, so I just moved here when I was 12. So it's okay. I ain't from Atlanta either, Ben. It's all right. Ain't nobody that's from Atlanta really from Atlanta. If you want to got to be honest with it. Everybody just moved. We're transplants.
The closest I can come to that, Ben, is when. Everybody used to think, it was so bad to be from Compton, and then the movie Straight Outta Compton comes out. Now everybody from Compton.
Everybody from Compton?
Yep, absolutely, Dr. Matt.
Yep. Marcus, I know you're not from Atlanta, but y'all got that going on where you from, man? Because a lot of people calling out, you ain't from Miami, or you ain't from all these places now.
Which, I mean, that is a tale as old as time, Right. You talk about fucking claiming your sets and that shit. Which I'm sorry, Ben, I feel bad for you. Sometimes you just got to take.
I don't have a home.
It's like that. Like on Twitter, it's like you report, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Report this shit.
Right.
It hurt my feelings. I never really claimed it though, because I'm smart enough to know, like, if you didn't go to high school somewhere, you certainly don't claim that city. But that beat was banging. And honestly, Sis got like 10 million views on that. So shout out to her.
It was banging. So I hope that she does good.
Got some breaking news.
Oh, we got breaking news. What's that, Dave?
Yeah, so I couldn't catch it on the stream quick enough to put it up. I can try to rewind to get a timestamp, but the local streams are not in the courtroom. They're outside the courthouse. But they have been, the suspects have been found guilty of hate crimes in the Ahmaud Arbery case.
Is this the McMichaels?
I believe it's all three, but
all three.
That's unconfirmed. I know the McMichaels have definitely been found guilty. Yes, they're still reading through the through the verdict.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Mack.
We need the same judge from the Arbery case to just represent every case. Just line them up and send them in front of him.
Yeah.
I can tell you what, because the little Asian sister over there in Minnesota. All of a sudden she talking about, I know her intent. At what point, Marcus, do I know what your intent is? That you know what my intent, that anybody knows what anybody's intent is when they done pulled a gun and shot somebody. And now you want to tell me their intent is to be loving and all that. Look at that. Yeah.
This is something that, like my partner's going to law school right now at UDC. So like my idea of law and understanding is, I'm basically a lawyer is what I'm trying to say. No, but the brother Pascal from This Is Revolution, he talked about like what law school does And it's like it really takes the humanity out of the rules of society. Yeah. You know, and part of this is when they talk about intent, that's part of the law. That's part of how they say, no, we proved intent. But like you just said, Brother Mac, like, how do you ever know? How are you ever going to know? And especially, too, if I can just shout, taser, right, and then just gun someone down, hey, I'm going to yell, no robbery, as I walk into the bank hall.
That's right. Gentlemen, I thank you all for hanging out with us so long this morning. Dr. Mac, been with me since the top of the show. DJ Exclusive is not a show without you here. Mark Left Lane Bets, before we get out of here, please tell everyone when and where they can watch your content, because it's amazing.
You can find us on twitch.tv/leftflankbets. And we start, afternoon, so I'll be starting around noon on my show, Capitol Hill, in which we try to do a deep dive of what's going on in U.S. politics as it is happening. But then you could also follow us on the Bird app, Twitter at just Left Flank Bets. And thank you so much for having me on. I always enjoy being here with you.
Marcus, I feel like a very privileged student sitting in your class, man. I so enjoy the dialogue, the way that you think. Sometimes it flips my way of thinking on my head, but to listen to you, it opens up a whole new level of thinking and education for me. So brother, from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you for your black genius. I appreciate it.
Dr. Mac, I'm going to have to go clean up my ass real quick. Man, thank you.
Cut that clip. DJ Exclusive, it's in your hands. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see everyone tomorrow.
Cause I'm a brand new model with a brand new model. Yeah, I called out Carlos.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much again for joining us this morning on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Shout out to everybody that came on today. We had a slate full of guests, and unfortunately, I only know Marcus and Dr. Mac and Pascal that were here. Not Dr. Mac, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, y'all, we thank y'all again for tuning in this morning, man. Go be great and have a great day. And your affirmation for today is, I am working towards making a life I love. I am working towards making a life I love. Y'all gonna be great today, man. Love y'all, mean it. We will see y'all in the morning.